Hey guys, Zaf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I am pleased to say I am not alone today. I needed the services of a big brain, a genius, a fellow. I needed a Kraken to help me swim in arena. That's what we're going with here. So I am joined today by Mr. BigPoppaDrock. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, wow, that's a hell of an intro. I feel like special now. I'm doing great, Saf. How you doing, man? It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. We got some pretty cool legendaries today on, I'm recording this on, Saturday, so I did my shard summons today. Got some pretty cool options here, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm feeling a bit bad that I wailed, but as you told me, just join the club kind of thing, right? That's
yeah. Welcome to the Whale Club, my friend. I'm glad to have you here. Enjoy your stay, and then don't come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep your money. Keep your money.
I'm visiting for a very brief moment in time, as they say. So we've been looking to do this collaboration for a while. It'd probably be a couple of like different things we wanted to do because I'm getting more and more into arena. But like probably many of you watching this video, I'm a bit lost amongst my armada of champions that I have on my account, right? I've got so many different options now. Some of you may not have met as many options as me here, but it's always like the difficulty is what champion should I focus on? How should I build them? What kind of like team construction should I have? Specifically for all of you who've got Narses. So what we're going to be doing today is Mr. Drock over here is going to be advising me based on what I've got available using the new Wight King Narses. How can we build a couple of competitive teams, and what kind of options would you do to like set him up? And that's kind of what we want to do, right? And that's the plan.
Yeah. No, and you've got some. What's great is you actually have some really good champions for specifically arena. Obviously Narses, that's who we're going to focus on today, and I think he does have incredible potential in the arena. Even just as a obviously Taurus merchant counter, which is what he's built to do, but beyond that, he also really has a great kit, and I think if you build him right, it looks like he could do some pretty nasty damage. And full disclosure, Saf, this is the first time I'm building him as well. I haven't even built my Narses yet. So yeah, we're going to be going on this journey together. So excellent. I'm excited to see what we come up with.
Yeah, so by the time this video comes out, it probably will come out around about Tuesday, which is the start of CVC, because like many of you know, I'm not in the test server. I don't have unlimited resources. So I'm doing what everyone else does, which is probably going, I'll wait until clan versus clan or a champion chase to summon my White Queen Ancora, which is a bit frustrating because we can't actually build them today. But what we can do is plan ahead, and that's what most people should do. So that's what we're doing today. But yeah, it's one of the pitfalls of having to play like everyone else, I guess. But it's good to see. So one thing I want to ask you straight away. Now, I had a struggle with a blessing options for Wight King Narses. Some people might have picked up a 1-star soul. They might have had something in the backlog. And I was looking through a lot of the different options. I very much felt, I know this is a very sore subject to bring up because I know you are there's a secret war against the order of the sheep going on with yourself.
God, yeah.
I just felt like putting polymorph on him at 1-star wasn't worth it. Particularly,
I actually agree with you. I wouldn't put polymorph on him at 1-star. Even with blessings, even with increased stats, it's just requires too much accuracy to be worth it. At this level of arena, polymorph really only comes into play if we're talking really 4 or actually even 5-star. Because now with the increased accuracy you get from 5-star, you have a much higher chance of potentially placing a sheep debuff, even on nukers if they're built with some level of accuracy. But for Narses, yeah, I would not go with polymorph. I don't think that's the right fit for this champion for where you're at, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was looking around the different options, and obviously we've got some reworked ones. Although Brimstone surprisingly is actually quite good against champions, it can be, because it can just rip off 25% of the enemy's max HP. It's surprisingly good in the right situation. Again, it's kind of like I don't really want to be placing debuffs or running the risk of polymorph, even though we know there's a pretty significant problem at the moment with Wight King Narses A3. Because for some reason they coded it wrong.
Which you figured out, by the way. So well done. Well done to you for figuring that out. And I hope that it actually gets fixed ASAP.
Yeah, I think what they actually need to do after I've reflected on it is make it so that block revive is an exception within the polymorph rule set. Because as people are pointing out, it's probably because of the 3 buff criteria, where like the only way they could figure out if there's 3 buffs is to do it at that point in time. I think they just probably need to make block revive not polymorphable, because it's pretty stupid to have a damage dealer that's not debuffing to suddenly go poly sheep because, oh look, I block revived them. It's like, that's not really what we want.
It's pretty insane. So I would agree with you. Let's hope they do that.
So obviously Crushing Rend would be a good option if it was 6-star, but 1-star it's basically pointless. So we don't look at that. So I was kind of like looking through all the difference. I personally think Soul Reap is in need of a massive fix because it just fundamentally just doesn't work properly. You know, it should ignore shields. It doesn't. It should be total HP, not what's remaining. It shouldn't be disrupted by things like Harima passive. Like,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It has a lot of counterplay to it, unfortunately, which is one of the downsides. Like it can come in clutch on certain champions, but I agree with you. I don't think it makes the most sense for him either.
It just doesn't do what it says on the tin. You know, it's designed to be like, oh, if you get to that threshold, I execute you. And it's like, it just, more often than not, it doesn't. And the fear is not that valuable because we know how, you know, it's amazing how 50% fear doesn't work as strong as 25% polymorph. But there you go. That's the world we live in, right? I was considering Life Harvest, but again, until you get to like 3-star, I think Life Harvest is quite poor. Once you get to 3-star and above, I think it gets really good because then you start getting turn meter, and like my experience with Live Arena, and I'm sure it's with you, taking a turn is probably the most important thing you can do. So it's as much as we're not speed meta, it's still a speed meta in that sense.
Yeah, well, also like the interesting thing about Life Harvest too on champions like Ancora or or Narses is that, with that destroy max HP, obviously these champions are meant to counter Marichka, they're meant to counter Taurus. And so if you could hypothetically put Life Harvest on one of them and then ban a Marichka, and now you've got a champion, if they don't ban your Narses, now you've got a champion that directly counters Taurus, and on top of that, you're sucking down people's health and destroying their HP. But I agree with you. At 1-star, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Awesome. So that one was out. And then we were left with, okay, it kind of got to, do I want Ward of the Fallen? But again, Ward of the Fallen has value at 1-star, but it still needs that 6-star to be truly valuable. I feel like it's a bit like Crushing Rend in the sense that 6-star bonus for it completely redefines the blessing in itself. The 20% is nice, but I feel like with a HP-based damage dealer, it's very hard to kill them generally anyway. So the bone armor is not really going to give them a huge amount of benefit. So what I actually ended up with, my choice, was Heavencast, because I figured Ancora would buff a lot because she's going to do strengthen, shield. She does 3 buffs, right? What does she do? I know
she can do strengthen, she can do a shield, she cleanses, and then she's got
so she's got 2 buffs.
One more.
Yeah, she's got 2 buffs, cleanse, shield, and a strengthen because of the partnership with Narses. And then obviously I will probably put it with something like a Duchess, or we're going to decide that today. So I just figured even if I get to 5 buffs, 2.5% damage boost is probably better than anything that I could come up with. I don't know if you have a different idea or a different opinion. I don't know what you think about that.
I actually think for a 1-star, I actually think this is something that's changed, right? So obviously they've reworked this, and I think this is actually a viable blessing now, especially for champions like, for example, Taurus or Narses, because you are throwing out so many buffs, and really Arena is about putting out a ton of buffs. And if you think of like high level, the challenge is you put out a ton of buffs, you can't get rid of those buffs because of polymorph, unless you have really specific champions. But I actually think this is the right choice for where this is at right now. For a 1-star blessing, you're potentially getting a pretty solid damage increase with this. You don't have to worry about having accuracy to come into play like you would with polymorph. Again, I agree with you about Ward of the Fallen. Like until you get to that 6-star level, you lose those shields. They don't come back. And it's very easy to take them off. I think you actually suggested in a previous video that I watched that it should be a critical hit that takes him off. This was a long time ago, so correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so I watched SAF content, but
only you of that video, because I think it was terrible performed, that video.
I loved that video. I thought it was actually very, very good. But I do think Heavencast is very viable because you are going to be throwing up a lot of buffs. He also, if you look at Narses's kit, he gets increased damage from having buffs as it is on his A3, I think.
Yes.
So he's getting increased damage from that as well. So you're kind of stacking on top of that. So I would absolutely put him in Heavencast at this level.
Yeah.
If you had a 6-star, soul, then it's a little bit trickier question because it really depends on what level of arena you're facing. But let's say you had a 6-star soul in your level, I would absolutely put him in polymorph because everybody still uses debuffs down here, and you would be sheeping people left and right.
And I think actually for where you're at, top level, like I was strong and vocal, and I have to say I think I was wrong. That I was like, nah, polymorph to change. People will change they'll pick other things. Like Life Harvest at 6-star is really good, and Ward of the Fallen at 6-star is really good. I think they're better, they're more consistent. And actually, I was like, They're just going to pick sheep, aren't they? And a little bit of it's just like, it's the easy, it's almost like the cheat options, to get out of jail free card. It's like, just pick polymorph. It's so easy, it works, it does a problem, like it frustrates people, and people might just quit the game rather than actually try to fight me. And even though I personally think Life Harvest at 6-star is a better blessing than polymorph in terms of what it does, because of the consistency. Because obviously, if someone doesn't bring a debuff team, like, it really only affects Taras. If it's not a Taras, like if you're fighting a Wight King Narses outside of his A3, then he's never going to get polymorphed. Whereas if you revive him, then he loses 40% of his damage, because he's not based on base HP, he's based on HP. So this is essentially a decreased attack for a HP champion. So I personally think it's stronger.
Life Harvest is definitely a very strong blessing for sure. It's interesting. Like, I do think you make a really valuable point. And unlike Taras, whose HP damage is based off of whatever they want it to be at that point in time, whereas every other champion is based off of what they actually have HP wise. Like, yes, like Life Harvest is definitely a viable option at that level. It is so tough, right? Because Arena is so different depending on what level you play in. And it is one of those things where just the threat of high level polymorph can be enough to completely change somebody's team comp against you. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you face champions like Sun Wukong a lot down here. Maybe they're stealing buffs, maybe they're placing debuffs, and like if you had 6-star polymorph, he's becoming a sheep.
It's GG, exactly. And the most of those Sun Wukongs, they're propped up with an arbiter, so not really with a super tanky reviver. And they often come with like Soul Reap themselves, and they're not like going to polymorph you. So certainly a gold one. That's the level we're talking about here, just for anyone who doesn't know. Gold 1 live arena is kind of like where we're positioning this, rather than the gold 4 that you're at. Okay, so I didn't want to make this whole video about blessings, but I was really curious about that, because I was thinking about it for a good 10-15 minutes, kind of going, well, my default was Ward of the Fallen, because that's always the one I go to for HP based, even though it's not the same anymore, but it used to be the only one with like HP and crit damage, so it was like the default option. But then I was like, actually, this could be really good. Now, I don't necessarily think this is the best blessing for damage dealers, because I still do think Phantom Touch for single target damage dealers is really good, but that's only if you're attack based. So for HP based, not very good. So
no, I think you made the right choice. I agree with this choice.
Okay, so basically, I know, and most people will probably have Ancora. We're going to be pairing Narses and Ancora together. What else do we put with it? That's basically the decision that I'm at. Now, I was fortunate enough to just pull Shu-Zhen the Valorous when I went for Narses, which was bonkers. I don't really know how I managed to pull that one off. Someone in player must like me.
Congrats.
And she's obviously a major game changer, because she is the only champion in the game that can get rid of sheep. And she gets this like very unique thing called instant turn. Ironically, I also got the terrible version of it, which is Isla Lifebraid, where you have absolutely no control over when it's going to happen. So I got both instant turn champions in the same summoning pool. Do you think
huge pulls?
Actually, I'm kind of curious to see if this does work anywhere. I'm worried about Hydra, because you just might take a turn at the wrong point in time, but it'll be interesting to see. Do you think Shu-Zhen automatically goes into a team with Narses and Ancora, or do you think it's better using elsewhere? That's my question for you.
It's tricky, because Shu-Zhen is a phenomenal champion. She is great for live arena. I think the biggest downside for her is that she doesn't have that 5. So I was so missing out on that 5 option with the arbiter, but that's just cannot work out the most market level. potentially look to bring him with Narses. But I think you have a couple different options that make a lot of sense with his kit that could be useful, but she would definitely be on that list for sure.
Yeah, because obviously this A3 Spirits Claim You obviously looks very powerful, especially if the enemy is buffed. We're in a buff meta, essentially, so the likelihood is there's going to be a bolster, and then there'll probably be, if it's a Duchess, well, there's your 3 buffs. It's going to happen. So this block revive is surprisingly easy to enable, even though it looks, when you read it, it sounds pretty difficult. I'm going to have 3 specific... It's only normally when you kill them and they come back, they don't have the buff, so...
Yeah.
But it is quite a weak multiplier on its own. So when I think it's a 0.2 base, which is,
oh, wow, that's a very low multiplier.
Compared to like a Narses A2, which is 0.7 when it gets that double bonus. So, you've got a 0.5 differential you need to make up here. But because of these extra stacks, like if you have like 4 on the enemy, 4 on you or something like that, you can scale it upwards quite comfortably. Like if you had it fully stacked out, then, 10%. They don't actually multiply the damage. It's like increasing the multiplier. So it's almost like for every buff, you get 0.2 times the number of buffs. So if there's 10 buffs,
oh, interesting. Okay.
You get a 0.2.
Okay.
And then if it's 10 buffs on the enemy, you get another 0.2. So it can cap out at about 0.6. That's like the total cap.
Okay.
So if you have 5 buffs on the enemy and 5 buffs on you, it's a 0.4. That's actually quite strong then, because I think only Taras beats it on a single target. Most single targets are about 0.25, 0.3, 0.4. Something is it 0.35 in that window? But you need that buff differential. So as you said, if I get Shu-Zhen, then obviously it's 1, 2, 3. The attack and crit rate's useless, other than being a stat buff. So it's 3 there, potentially 4. If you paired it as well with Wight Queen and Corey, you're going to get strengthen and a shield. You might start with a bolster already. So that's like 2 more plus 3 plus 4, so 6 buffs. So he's already getting a good, 0.2 times 6, whatever that is. Or it's like 0.
Yeah.
The way they work it out, it's like 10%.
Something. The math isn't my strong suit. This is your strong suit. I'll let you handle
It's 0.02 times 6. So it's 10% of the base multiplier for every single buff. So it's 0.02 times 6. So therefore that would be like an extra 12%, 0.12. So that would make him, just on buffs alone on our side, a 0.32. So that's
nice.
That's better.
It's a big improvement. Now, is that per hit on his thing? Because this is a 2-hitter. So would that be per hit?
It's each hit is 0.2.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can.
So that's pretty solid then. You know what I mean? That's pretty solid.
Then it hits quite hard. I think it's a per hit. You're making me doubt myself here now.
This is good.
This is when you got to double check everything and triple check everything and check these numbers out.
The other great thing about this too, because it's a 2-hitter, like you think about, it helps you get around with UDK, right? So if you're facing UDK, if you're not able to ban him for whatever reason, the fact that it's a 2-hitter, I mean, obviously depends on how strong each of those hits are. But if you're facing, for example, a squishy or damage champion like a Georgid or a Mezimel, you could hypothetically block revive on them.
Yes.
If you get around like that UDK. So that is very strong. That is pretty useful.
Like, that's why I was always like, if anyone's caught my live streams, I used Fenax a hell of a lot because it was just super consistent. You can go in, I'd use Wukong, get rid of someone, pick the target I want, take out the win condition. And then it's just a race to like how long it takes you to finish off the tanky champions and Stone Skin and everything. But you've won because you've taken the win condition. And my experience has always been, and I don't know if this is the same for you at the high level, there's always one win condition that you want to take out. There's not really like, oh, they can kill you with 4 different sources. It's like, right, they've got one champion. You take that one out, you've probably won, right? Is that kind of similar?
I would say a lot of battles are like that, where there is, a battle where there is one linchpin, which if you can get rid of that linchpin, it definitely starts to fall apart. I will say sometimes at the high level, they have maybe 2 different options that are super strong to keep them in the fight, where if even you get rid of, it really depends on like who somebody bans. Because what ends up happening is if you're left with 2 damage dealers, there's always a second way to get around something. But for the most part, like somebody has a team that they've constructed around, like this is the keystone of my team. This is the person that makes this team work. A lot of time you see it's Rhodos, or maybe it's UDK, or maybe it's Georgia, or whatever it is. And if you can get rid of that champion, yes, I would say for the most part, you're right. Their team comp will fall apart, and then it is just a matter of kind of doing what needs to be done over time.
Yeah. So this is actually a 0.2 per hit. So that means if you get 6 buffs on him, it becomes a 0.32 times 2. So it's like a 0.64. Then it becomes a Narses A2. If you just buff it, that's a lot.
That's really good.
That's a nasty.
It's really good, and it blocks revive. Like that's so scary in arena. That's terrifying.
And the crazy thing, of course, with Wight Queen Ancora, if anyone doesn't know the pairing and why it's really kind of crazy, is most people, you probably shouldn't use any other ability on Wight Queen Ancora apart from her A1, because every single time she uses her A1, she just resets the cooldown of Wight King Narses, that's where it gets incredibly scary, because it's like, okay, my first A, we kill 2 of them, no worries, A1, let's go again, let's kill them all. it's quite nuts, because
it's nuts.
It's a 3-turn cooldown.
You're basically forced to ban one of them. Like you basically, when you face them in live arena, people have to choose one of them to ban because of that interaction, because they can be so scary. I mean, you can get around it like you can with everything, with speed, and with certain champions. Like if you have Georgian and you can maybe kill the Ancora, or if you can take one of them out initially, go through Stone Skin, whatever it is, Shu-Zhen. But when they are together, they are truly terrifying. And what's great is they are such a strong counter to Taurus and Richka that you're not going to see, I don't think, that team nearly as much as like a top level first pick. This is what I'm going with. So building this guy up, if you got him, without a doubt, is a smart thing to do. And I think the great thing about it is because he's HP based, we can build more survivability into his kit to keep him alive while still making him nuke super hard.
Yeah, because I mean, his kit is purpose designed for countering Marichka, essentially, because she strengthens and restores all the healing. Most teams start with a bolster. Most of them I know of, a shield or a bolster is always in there somewhere. So you automatically get access to this double hit. Obviously, he won't consume the shield, so he always gets his double hit. Even things like, I see a lot of Mithralas, strengthen and shield. It's like in there. There's also things like Lydia. It's a strengthen buff. So you'd be surprised how many times the strengthen buff pops up and it causes you problems. Pythian revives with strengthen. It's surprising how much of the actual strong champions that get picked that this is going to work well in. Just a little note on this damage inflicted by other things. I've seen a lot of discussion about this and it's causing some confusion. I just thought I'd add it in here right now. Obviously, this will be part of like a full guide that I do on him anyway after this, after I've taken all the words of wisdom from our dear friend Drock over here and built out our team. This does work with Helm Smasher, believe it or not.
Okay.
Because
interesting.
Whenever you see this word, and you see it on Karato as well, what it basically means is if there's a mastery or passive skill that multiplies the damage up or down, so that strengthen multiplies it down, weaken multiplies it up, that is what it's disabling. It's not actually disabling ignore defense mechanics. So things like Harima passive is going to mess this up big time. That's going to hurt this 25% down to 12.5%. It's not going to bypass the Harima passive for the halving of the ignore defense, but Helm Smasher will work. So that's kind of good. So you should absolutely build him with Helm Smasher by far. That's
really good to know. And I'm glad you told people that. And I'm glad you told me that because I didn't even know that, frankly. And that is such a massive thing because then it just makes you think like, all right, if I see this guy in arena, how am I countering him? What am I doing? And if you have Harima, which I know you don't. I do.
I wish I did.
You're definitely picking Harima.
I went for her as well in the times 10. I think I got something like, what did I get? It wasn't Harima. It was like something like Vargal. I was like, that's a funny looking Harima. I was just, and same as Kaimar. We've gone for Kaimar like 4 times. This is sore subject.
I'm sorry to cause you pain, my friend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's awful. But if you actually think about it, the reason why that's very important, if you get, it's got 25% built in. If you get the Helm Smasher proc, it takes you to 50%. And really the best, like the ultimate build you could get if you're lucky. And it's very difficult because we all know Sintranos and Soul Cross. Like, I've seen your video on it. I agree fully with everything you're saying. Some of the restrictions in there are so stupidly, it's complexity for the sake of almost, hey, look how wide our roster is that you can only use 10 champions. I'm like, that's not difficult. That's just frustrating. But Merciless gear is locked behind that. But if you can get lucky and you can get some good 6-star accessories, I don't think I've really got that much good Merciless. It's very hard to see because you can't filter the set. Like, I've got some Supersonic.
I know we need a filter for Stone Skin and Supersonic and Merciless for accessories really badly.
I do have one HP banner with the speed, but it's no speed roll. And that hurts not to have a speed roll. It's very difficult to go without any speed rolls on your banner.
Yeah,
and you need 2.
That's rough.
If you have 2, then you can absolutely go 6-piece Merciless and then 1 piece of Cruel, and that will give you 40% ignore defense. So now you've got 25 plus 25 plus 40. Well, that's 90% ignore defense. And that is
crazy
nuts when you think he's got a multiplier that's probably the second highest AoE HP multiplier in the game, if not the highest if you take out Tarras's stupid amounts of multiplication. So, yeah, I mean, that was an important fact I just wanted to mention to people, because I think I've seen so many people comment. I know Shinny's had lots of questions about it, and you know, things like, does it go through Ward of the Fallen? No, this will not go through Ward of the Fallen, because Ward of the Fallen is a buff, so it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
So if you're fighting Ward of the Fallen, it's going to drop the damage down. So there's lots of different things like that. So, okay, cool. So Shu-Zhen, a very good option. Would there be any situation you would say, you know, don't go towards the Shu-Zhen? Is there any sort of opponents that I would potentially face that you think, you know, across all spectrums, actually, because there could be some people that are building for the high end, and, you know, for people that would be fighting on your level?
Biggest thing with picking Shu-Zhen is you really want to try to make sure you have a reviver with her. I think one of the scariest things in live arena is when you don't have a reviver on your team. You can make it work. You can definitely get around it. But you really have to have extremely well built, you know, teams that are extremely tanky, or you're relying on, you know, UDK to keep you alive, or Necrit, or whatever else. So if you're picking Shu-Zhen, you just really, I think most of the time you kind of want to pick, if you don't have a lockout champion, probably 2 revivers along with her. So she's kind of your support champion. She's the one you're picking over lockout. So it really just depends on what you're facing too, because the biggest question you have to have is, does having additional speed, will that help me get the win, right? Like, am I facing a tanky team potentially that's stone skin based, because Narses doesn't go through stone skin, and that's a big question here? Or am I facing more of a speed team where I'm hoping to outspeed them? And then, of course, I think that the biggest question with her is really, am I facing polymorph that's 5 or 6 star, where someone might have a chance to turn me into sheep? So if you're facing somebody with a lot of polymorph, to me, she is not a good pick. I know that doesn't happen very often at this level, so you don't have to typically think about that, but that would be my number one thing to look at, is like, how much polymorph do they have? What kind of champions are they picking in terms of tankiness that I would guess at? And then, can I surround her with multiple revivers, so that no matter what, even if they ban potentially, you know, one of my revivers, I'm stuck with someone else. And so that's where it gets tricky, because you really have to make sure that you're putting the right champions around, like a Narses, around Ancora to do well. And I think that's also one of the great things about her kit, is that she can revive. So she can fill that role, you know, that maybe a Duchess or an Arbiter would fill for you. So that's super, super powerful when you think about combining that with Shu-Zhen and making sure the enemy doesn't even get a turn.
Yeah, because one of the main things I have a problem with often is if I go down like a speed team option, say like I decide I want to pick Arbiter, it's very difficult to like actually sort of have that psychological warfare and make them not pick your fast champion. Because, you know, you pick Arbiter and you might have put all your fast gear on like Arbiter, put Alessandra with you, thinking, okay, who are they going to ban? They ban the Arbiter and you're like, great, now my speed guy I'm not fast enough, and basically I'm made of paper towels and I get one shot, right? So, and I always worry about, like, Shu-Zhen would be a similar type of champion where you're going to want to build her fast, because her whole point is to be able to make her give a turn, right? So she replaces Arbiter in that function. But then if you only have one speed booster, does your team just collapse because you depend on that speed team? And that's my little bit of fear with her, is like, do I have to always bring it with an Arbiter so that whichever one you ban, I'm okay, you know?
I don't think you have to. It depends on what other champions you have available. I think, again, you can get away with only having her and not using Arbiter. Like, you could bring her in Duchess and then, you know, maybe Necrit. And then if she gets banned, like, it's okay. Like, you're switching to Duchess, Necrit, you're going tankier anyway. The other thing that I would say, like, part of her kit that is underrated too, is you think about the A1 and the ability to block people's skills. So not only are you slowing the enemy team down, speeding your team up, taking more turns, but you're also potentially locking them out, which kind of serves as like a low level, you know, warlord in some ways. You know, obviously it's done through a debuff, but blocking an active skill, super powerful versus obviously Taurus, super powerful in general versus most champions. So I think you can comfortably use her a decent amount of time with this team setup. It really just depends on what other champs you pick around her. And I think the biggest thing you're looking at with Narses is, how do I keep him alive, right? Like, how do I build him to make sure he stays alive long enough? And then how do I activate that buff bonus? So what champions am I throwing out? They're going to make the most sense. And so just looking at your roster right here, I mean, obviously what immediately sticks out, you have a Duchess. Like, Duchess is always a great champion, still one of the absolute best picks for live arena at this point in time, in my opinion. You could hypothetically do something like a Lady Mikage as well if you build her fast also. You can do some sneaky good stuff with Lady Mikage.
She's at like 275 speed, but I've built her for like PvE Hydra Fire Knight damage. So she's actually built full damage, which is...
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So yeah, totally. So you're using her in Fire Knight, you said?
Yeah, Fire Knight hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes sense. So if you were re-gearing her for Arena, you'd probably be building her extremely fast also as a speed champion, or alternatively in Stone Skin. You know, still again... fast. Because really the biggest thing with live arena is even on your tanky teams, and I think this is one of the things that's most misunderstood, is even your tanky teams are going to be fast most of the time, with the exception of like a champion like UDK. And even your speed teams, the goal is to make them tanky too. And this is obviously hard depending on what level you're at, but just to give you an idea, like I have a Shu-Zhen, right? She's +1, she's fully awakened. She's only like 410 speeds. She's not that fast for my level. But she's got 110k health and like 4,000, like 4,200 defense. So she's way tankier than people realize.
Whereas if I like,
so that's part of it.
If I bring up my Arbiter right now, and we were actually talking about this, like if obviously this Arbiter was +6, that +6 blessing gives you 15 speed. So taking into account what you just said, 410, that would probably put her not far away from your 410 build. But look at the difference. It's like, 50,000 HP, 2.7k defense. Now, obviously, at 6-star, you're going to get now a lot more defensive capabilities. You're going to get 600 more defense, and that's going to make that'll probably, lift up the defense up to that level. But it's still like, okay, how did I get like 410 speed with like, thousands of
100,000 HP?
A lot of it comes down to Ascension. Like you can see she's not in any Ascended gear. Like I haven't really rebuilt my Arbiter in 12 months.
And also the big thing here, looking at it right there, like your chest piece is flat attack.
Yeah.
Right. And your gloves are crit rate. So that's where you're losing. And this is, I think that's the hardest thing about gearing champions is, especially because you're fast champion, you're looking to get those triple rolls and you can't pick what piece they come on. And I know I've rolled so many pieces of gear. Like half the time it ends up on gloves you'd never want to use. You don't want to use attack percentage gloves on an Arbiter or a crit rate, but that's what got the triple speed roll. You know what I mean? So you're stuck having to use that. And that's always the hardest part of compromising on these champions.
Ironically, helms.
It does hurt your tankiness.
Helms have been the worst thing for me to get any sort of fast speed on. Like this is the only triple speed helm roll I've had in 4 years. And I've recently just got it. And it's actually super perfect because outside of one extra speed, it's got maximum roll defense, maximum roll HP, near enough maximum. It's pretty amazing. So
that's a fantastic. What do you have on her right now? If this is what you're using,
roll defense there, which is not so bad. So she's actually she had basically my fastest.
Okay, but she's
that I had. Like if I actually show all like that, this is the thing. So sometimes, and this is a very valuable lesson I think for everyone. Just because it's 6-star raid doesn't mean it's terrible. Like it doesn't mean it's terrible. It can absolutely be better. I actually have an amulet that is triple flat stat HP that has 100 less HP than a double flat stat HP. It's insane.
That's crazy.
And that was the one I was looking for Narses. So it's obviously selecting this one because I've got a +8 glyph on this, so it doesn't really respect the...
Do we have any glyphs right now, though? Let's just take a quick look at what glyphs we got, just out of curiosity.
I stole them up.
Hey. You got to glyph that,
Saf.
Saf. You got to do it.
You know what it'll do?
Do it.
You know what it'll do? This is, you must...
Do it, Saf.
You must have experienced this. It will go, I 100% guarantee you,
it's going to go 3.
+3, and then the next one you do will be +8. Ready for it? +3.
Yeah.
Oh, +5. Okay.
+5. Okay, +5. We can work with that. We can work with that.
Not bad. That does make it faster by 2 speed.
That's the one to pick. But just look at the increased HP and defense there. Like that's actually, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that could be the difference between your Arbiter surviving a hit and dying.
Exactly. And it's like 11 resistance as well. So if you start getting like, okay, I've got a really fast resistance banner, maybe I've got a really fast resistance chest, you start picking up a little bit of this, and then you start realizing that you knock out a lot of the, those 5-star nuka debuffs that can really cause you problems, like that steal your turn meter or do things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, she just has a terrible boot because, like many of you probably watching this, we went through our collection and we're like, how many boots can I get that's going to give me speed ascension? And I just went one by one. Actually, that one probably should be for her.
It's crazy how many boots I have that are like ascended the wrong thing, and I have to get Chaos Sword, and it's like, oh God, help me.
Yeah, it's
how much, quick question though, because you're trying to build the strongest arena team possible. So I know obviously it's not ideal that your chest is attack based. Mm-hmm. Also, why is it not fully rolled? Are you waiting? What are we doing here?
Was it gonna?
You didn't fully roll it to get another stat?
What's it gonna get?
What HP percentage, defense percentage,
right?
Something you might need.
But in the reality is, I would never put my arbiter into live arena because the way that I consider it at the moment, the way that it's built, it is very much like if I go first, I probably win because I one shot everything. If I don't one shot everything, I'm probably going to lose anyway because it's just not tanky enough. And leveling this up to 16 might give me like 5% HP. That's like
that is a very fair thing. I tend not to use arbiter as much in live arena anymore either. It is like it's tricky because it depends on like what your blessing is on her and also what your gear is in terms of survivability. But yeah, with how you have her built, it is a little rough.
So she's in the divine speed combo at the moment, which obviously I don't have another divine speed on her, so it would absolutely be speed. So it's like poor. It's very poor on HP specifically.
That's rough.
But obviously you could go defense. That doesn't really improve the situation. Oh, there is a defense one, but it's low.
Okay. So
it's kind of like
not worth it then. Okay.
It's very like there's probably like better gloves. I
just see a piece of gear that's not fully rolled, and I'm like, roll it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're someone who's actually like, listen, Drock, there's no need to. Why would I roll flat attack? What's the point?
I know, right?
Like, forget it. Save resources. You dirty Kraken.
But like until the helm, I was pretty good. Like I got a double roll, the triple roll there, triple roll, not perfect, but pretty good. This is a triple roll. Obviously speed on here. I think I got a triple roll attack, but you know, you go for speed. So
how much? So something that's occurring to me looking at your account right now, and obviously this is different for every person, but how much do you run Sand Devil, Shoguns, that kind of stuff? Have you done some of those runs? Or are you kind of holding off on that because of the energy cost? Or
so like I think I probably fall into the bracket of most end game players who don't necessarily spend a significant amount of money. So I spend more than the average player. That's obviously clear because I just wailed on Narses, so I have no way of saying I don't spend money. But it's the average player that might buy the odd shard pack here or they might energy pack. And they throw so many events at you now that you literally have so few windows. So I always do the tournament. That's kind of like what I normally do is a Sand Devil tournament comes out. I get 3 rank 4 chickens, like champions. I throw it in there with my God Secret Eerie 5-star and Ninja. And by the time I finish the tournament, I have 3 rank 4 ready to go for the next training tournament, right? That's how I do it. So I'll always target the tournaments because you get like a tier 2 stone. Like it's worth it. Yeah,
you get good stuff from them.
I do have teams built. I've got a 32nd Shogun 25 team ready to go.
Okay, great.
Lovely double whisper team. Very innovative. Of course, it's double whisper. And I've got a 1 minute 30 Sand Devil team. So the teams are ready to go. It's just when does anyone ever have time to do anything other than, you got to do this dungeon diver. Now you got to do champion training. Yeah. Like for the last 4 weeks, it has been
so many events.
Alatrian champion training path into a champion training tournament into another training path. And then it was like the training for this Titan point. So, but I want to spend more because that is this is what I absolutely should replace it with, by the way. It's that's like a mass improvement. But I think it's just relatively new.
Just out of curiosity, can you just show me what kind of resources you have in terms of your oils and also your like if you went to upgrade one of these pieces? I'm just curious as to how much you have saved.
So
because I think one of the things, all right, so you got 500. All right, so we're relatively low on the whatever.
And then
I think one of the biggest things that people can do to improve their strength. Okay. So it's tough because obviously you don't want to spend all your energy in this when you're trying to do other events, especially if you're not a big spender, right?
Yeah.
What I would say is if you're really trying to compete in arena, if you're really trying to improve, obviously farming these things are the best thing you can do for your account without a doubt. Like that's going to make the biggest impact on your champions more than anything else nowadays, except for getting blessings, but like having that kind of god tier gear. But one of the things I think happens a lot too is you'll end up like getting a significant amount of materials. And if you're farming stage 25, you're always going to have an excess of like lesser potions and stuff like that. Never shy away in those instances from upgrading your top row.
I actually think the top row is more valuable than people give it credit to. I'm in the camp of
way more
top
valuable.
Row is
way more
basically
valuable.
The equivalent of having a ring. It's so good.
Yeah.
Just to showcase to people why we say Ascension is so big. I built my Zenogre Blade Master for Fire Knight. and I put pretty much the best accessories. Now, the amulet here, you're going to probably hate me for, and you're probably going to say, why are you doing this? And this is really stupid for Finite Hard. I actually had on her at one point an amulet, which wasn't as strong as this.
Oh wow,
she was wearing.
It's a hell of an amulet.
She was wearing like an amulet,
and it's reaction too, Saf. Which like, oh my god,
yeah.
It's reaction.
So she had the bottom amulet here, right? So I'll just show it so everyone can see it, because probably my head is in the way. And I was like, do you know what? HP, it's good, but it's kind of wasted because she doesn't need it. I would really love that to be attack. So I was like, oh, well, I might as well just try and roll this amulet that I've got here. And I was like, I just rolled it to 3. And I was like, oh, I triple rolled it. I wonder if it's quad rolling. And I'm like,
that's incredible amulet.
That's so
that's
good.
Like, it's such a good, like, that's got to go on an arena champion. That has to, especially being a reaction. Yeah. It's too good.
But the problem is like, who do you put like arena nuker for Shadowkin?
For Shadowkin,
Harima.
I mean, like, I Harima would be your choice, but you don't have her. You could do Karato if you have him. He's actually, I think,
without Yumiko,
a little underrated sometimes. I think he can be. I think he's better than people give him credit for.
But it also has to be like
in a world
like benefiting from the accuracy. Otherwise, this isn't better than someone that has got like triple attack. You know,
which he would, since he can place, I believe, block active skills on one of his abilities.
It was just ironic that I ended up quad rolling something I wasn't. I wanted actually the attack. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, that's a hell of an amulet, though. That is a really good amulet. If you ever got a Harima, that's a great amulet for her, for sure.
We also have this ring here,
especially with reaction,
which is
nice,
godly as well. And we also have this. Like, these are probably the best accessories on my entire account. Like, they're
great.
The defense roll is a bit annoying there, but
you've gotten really lucky on your Shadowkin rolls.
Yeah.
These are excellent.
They are really, really good. But, so Jintoro took a hit though. Sorry, Jintoro. Like.
It happens, you know. He sacrificed gladly. But what I was going to say, and you were saying too, and I'm actually glad to see it on your Zenogre, is you did 2-star ascend your top row, and I think a big part of why people discount this is because obviously the overall stats are not as glitzy and glamorous as a 20% HP or 20% defense or whatever else, but. Two things. First and foremost, in arena, every stat matters. Every advantage you can get is important. Every increase of power can mean the difference between winning a battle or losing a battle. So you take it wherever you can get it. But then on top of that, the great thing about the top row is you often get something that is useful. Like, you know, you have a 2 in 3 chance on most champions of getting something that is going to benefit you. Like, the only time attack really doesn't benefit you is if you have a defense-based nuker or a support champion, but you still have a chance to get HP, you still have a chance to get defense. And the great thing is that these pieces are also significantly easier to rework and get what you're looking for than the bottom row is. You can spend, and I have spent 100 to 200 Chaos Ore or Chaos Dust on one piece trying to get HP percentage or defense percentage or whatever it is. Whereas in the top row, I can probably get a useful stat reworking it one time.
Yeah. It's the same with the amulet, isn't it? The amulet is so much easier.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I always prioritize my Chaos Powder, is just getting this combo. Because I got a 1 in 3 chance it's going to be crit damage. But it's pretty good.
The odds are way better on those pieces. And so I always encourage people, if I'm like helping someone with their account, is especially because a lot of people, obviously, this game encourages you to hoard resources as much as possible because you never know when they're going to be necessary. But if you're really trying to push arena, sometimes it's good to allocate those resources on pieces that are really, really solid. So your super speed pieces, your really great damage pieces, don't be afraid to upgrade that stuff because it can make a massive, massive impact on your individual champions. Because if you think about it, if you upgrade, let's just look at HP. If you upgrade all the top row and all of your accessories for a support champion, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of, what is that? 3,600 on the top row plus an additional 2,400 plus 1,800. Yeah. That's like 7K, 8K HP. That's a lot of HP.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Attack is the same. It's basically about, like, I think I calculated on someone like Baron, who's got a high base attack, about 1575. You know, it's 80 plus 80 plus 80. So that's like, you know,
240 on that. 240.
Then you basically go get another 180 or 120 down here on the banner. So that's another bit. So you realize you actually pick up another 500 attack, which is a lot. It's basically massive. A rank 2 blessing bonus near enough. It's really big. Speaking of multiple attempt rolls, these boots are going to be the death of me. Look, like, I wanted to be.
I just saw that.
I wanted to be like speed or attack percentage. I would settle on attack percentage.
Re-roll it. Do it. Re-roll it. Do it.
Oh, come on, speed.
Oh no. Hey,
Hey,
HP percent. You know what though? That actually aligns with those boots though, because they do have HP percentage on them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's speed with speed, and
I know speed would be great too. But hey, improvement over what we had. Improvement over what we had.
It's painful, but yeah,
I could feel the pain. This is the Kraken in me. Do it. Roll it.
Like,
spend it. Sell it.
I actually find I can never get enough lesser oil. I always have a surplus of, greater oil. That's the oil that I struggle with more than anything. Greater oil. I just never have enough. When I go into the Cintranos and I find like that cobble market that my Vlad one-shots and it has like 60 greater oil, I'm like, quids in. This is the best 10 seconds of my life. I will say this Chaos Dust is now for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, probably the highest dopamine rush you can have in this game. Rolling this Chaos Dust.
It makes like it's crazy the power level increase that is added. Like I look at my Duchess, I did a World's Strongest Duchess build maybe 2 months or a month before they released these Chaos Ore things. And my HP at that time was something like 116K, 118K, or maybe 120K HP with 340 speed, right? So I had a 2-turn Stone Skin Duchess. Then I went and rebuilt her after I got the Chaos stuff. She's over 150,000 HP with 315 speed and still 5,000 plus defense. Like it's insane the amount of power you get from this stuff. And I completely agree. Like when you get the right thing, you are stoked. It hurts when you have to re-roll it 20 times. So then you're like, oh my God.
I mean, this is a classic example of how Dust changed this. This used to be flat attack. Flat HP. And now it went straight into that, and it's triple roll attack on my Whisper with a mythical roll on accuracy. It's like absolute. It's probably the best amulet on my account by far.
That's an incredible amulet, especially as a mythical.
And we do have like, if I ever get Jorgid
on a reaction, if
I ever get Jorgid, I'm good to go. I have the gear.
I know. I was going to say, like, we need you to get Jorgid now because that is a god tier Jorgid piece, especially on reaction.
This is the problem.
Oh my!
Up until
there's some good gear on this account.
Up until December,
really good gear in this account.
I was so frustrated because I didn't have a Rhodus, I didn't have like Jorgid, I didn't have Leoris. We went through the champions. You're like, well, you don't have that. What is wrong with you? I'm like, welcome to my world. I can't really use that excuse anymore. But yeah, that is, it's sitting on Whisper at the moment.
Incredible.
And we do have like it's slow, but it's still pretty good, So,
bro, your gear is actually surprisingly good. Like there's some really nice pieces on this for sure.
We do have like a lovely 8,000 Whisper. It's
on a Whisper.
Yeah,
I love this.
I actually have 2 Whispers because with my dedication to the Church of Whisper, we do have another beautiful attack amulet there. Actually more better base attack, but it doesn't have the extra accuracy, so they're kind of similar. So yeah, it's
very nice.
We do have I have a fast one as well. So Night Revenant, I'm pretty good to go with those things. So let's
you need a Jorgid right now. You need a Jorgid immediately. That's our next pull for your account for sure.
If I had a Jorgid, I could just cut through all that ultimate Death Knight nonsense that we have to deal with. Honestly, that's my number one rule, by the way. I should have said this at the start of the video.
You told me off stream, but you should tell me.
We don't use Ultimate Death Knight. That thing is the most. Honestly, I actually firmly believe that Ultimate Death Knight is a bigger issue than Taras.
I actually don't disagree with you. I think Ultimate Death Knight has been one of the most frustrating champions to face in Arena. Like, I'll actually use him. So for me, like, my most hated champion is probably Helicath. I really hate Helicath. Because I can't strip his buffs because of polymorph at the high level. That's why I hate him. But just noticed that guy's team name, by the way. What? How is that even allowed? Anyway. Incredible. But
that was a bit awkward.
Basically, that just it's like, what? How do they allow that? But so the thing with Ultimate Death Knight is that he just so frustrating. He slows everything down, and even having Jorgid isn't a guaranteed way to deal with him because of reaction, because everyone puts him in triple reaction and makes him 110 speed. But yeah, it helps. It certainly helps for sure.
It's just a 2-minute tax. That's the way it's like a 2-minute tax. Often it'll even be a situation where I'll go in like Arbiter, Ramantu, I'll take out all the other 3, and then it's just like, great, now we're just going to sit here for 5 minutes whilst we wait for this 2-turn Stone Skin to eventually fall off this enemy. So then as soon as it falls off, he just dies, and it's just so frustrating. I think that's for me, like, it's one of the main issues because it just slows everything down, and it gives the opportunity then for these OP picks to go, hey, you've taken too long, now you're dead. You're in trouble now.
Yeah.
But you see like the like literally the rampant endemic of Ultimate Death Knight. Every single team he's in.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Everywhere. And I'm just like, can I just fight? What? Like there's two teams.
Two teams.
Three.
2 or 3 teams without him.
And
there he is. There he is
just
again.
like, it's
there we go. He's back.
It's terrible.